Hello everyone. Today I am doing a presentation on Chapter 11, Theater of Greece, from the textbook The Enjoyment of Theater. A little overview: theater and drama came from Athens, Greece in about the 15th century BCE. So with this, I'll be talking about some famous playwrights and thinkers who had a huge part in the creation of theater, some traits that the theater had, the structures that they performed in, the audience and the actors, the setting and machinery, the costumes and masks, and the Hellenistic period. So with that, let's get started. So Aristotle was a philosopher and a scientist. For the aspect of theater, he could be considered a great thinker and a playwright. He wrote the Poetics, but no one really knows where he got his information from, because he was writing 200 years after the first documented performance. So there were 4 different theories, being ritual, which people believed theater came from rituals devoted to the Greek god Dionysus. Great man is about scholars believing it was creativity. Storytelling is about scholars believing it stemmed from people acting out stories. And dance theory is about movement being the start of drama, but no one knows how it actually began. Aristotle wrote the Poetics in the Hellenistic period, which I'll talk about later. He said there were 3 major points in a tragedy, being imitates, takes, and produces. He also said there should be 6 parts to a play, being having a plot, character, idea, language, music, and spectacle. And this is a picture of a statue of him. So Aeschylus was a playwright, and he introduced a second actor to the plays to have a conflict between the characters. Typically, it was a hero and another person having hardships that they couldn't control. He wrote trilogies, which were 3 plays based on one subject that would be performed all in one day. One of the famous plays that he wrote was called Oresteia, and again his plays had heroic characters, powerful plots, and strong choice in words. And this is a statue of him. Thespius was one of the original playwrights. He wrote tragedies that only had 1 actor and 1 chorus. None of his works survived, but it is assumed that they were based on a single event rather than a full storyline. This is a statue of what people believed he looked like. Sophocles was another playwright and is known for adding a 3rd actor and also changed the practices in scenic paintings and costumes. He wrote more than 100 tragedies, but only 7 survived. By giving his characters more depth, he made them more human by the decisions being made and the actions taken. The disasters didn't happen because of wickedness, but by human actions and consequences. By the chorus not controlling the rhythm, it just made his plays different. 2 of his plays were Oedipus Rex and Oedipus the King, and this is a statue of him. Euripides was also a playwright, but was not popular during his lifetime. Socrates was known for attending his plays as well. His characters were more human than in Sophocles' plays. His characters were more realistic and focused on relationships. Some of his subjects included war, women, and human cruelty, which is why not many people liked him, and he is known as the father of melodrama. He declined the chorus to make the plays more personable, and this is a statue of him. Aristophanes was a playwright that introduced comedy 50 years after tragedy. He wrote 11 comedy plays, and they consisted of 2 different parts, being a prologue for the first part, and the second part having funny episodes and songs. And this is a drawing of him. So the traits for Greek theater consisted of religion, because they did worship the Greek gods, and the term for that is polytheism, meaning many gods. They only performed during 3 different festivals, being City of Dionysia, Rule Dionysia, and Lanaya. The performances required a chorus, which was a group of men all dressed alike that sang and moved together. They would have competitions at the festivals so the playwrights could win awards. The great competition had 3 tragic writers that would enter 3 tragedies and 1 satire play. The Lanaya competition consisted of 4 tragedies competing that were written by 4 different people. Both competitions had a comedy portion where 5 people would be entered and would have a single day set aside for it. By subsidized, an author was paired with a wealthy citizen who sponsored them, and this is a picture of what the performances look like. In Greek, theater means spectacle place or seeing place. The first theater was in Athens Market, but then moved to a hillside and became the Theater of Dionysius. The orchestra's playing area was either circular or rectangular, and the entrances were called the Paradise. In the 15th century, they created a scene house, also called a skene, tent, or booth. It was usually placed at the end of the orchestra and used a changing room or a place to put additional settings. The first ones were made of cloth and then got made into wood, then stone. The actors would sometimes perform in front of it, which made it a vacate stage, and this is a diagram of the layout of the building. Because the plays were outside, the audience had to be prepared for whatever the weather was going to be that day, whether that was to have umbrellas, cushions, or sunglasses. The wooden benches held up to about 14,000 people, and it was supposedly open to all, including women and slaves. As for acting, it is said that Thespius performed in his own plays, which is where the term thespian came from. The actors were competitive because there were only typically 3 speaking roles, and the main protagonist role could receive an award. The second and third speaking roles also played masked roles, and none of the performers got paid because they were all volunteers. And this is a picture of a chorus. Skenes became very essential, as well as having a flat, which is a painted scenery. They had 2 machines to provide special effects. The first one is Klima, which was a movable platform that was rolled out of the skene. The second was a machine, which was a crane that made actors and props fly. Props for tragedy included tombs, chariots, staffs, swords. Comedies had furniture, food, and clubs, and this is a picture of the special effects machinery. Masks were used to identify different characters. Tragedy costumes were more fancy, whereas comedy costumes were more funny and bigger and exaggerated. As for ethnicity, masks and clothes were made to look either Greek or other ethnicities. Then there were male and female attire, even though a cast was all male. The costumes always had to match the role as well. And this is a picture of different masks that were used during these plays. In the Hellenistic period, plays began to be performed all over Greece, not just in Athens. They were also no longer performed at just festivals. They also started to perform for special occasions. Satire pretty much vanished. Tragedies were on a decline as melodramas increased. Comedies were still popular. A new comedy came about as well and were about domestic tales such as money, love, family, and happy endings. Professionals came about and called themselves artists of Dionysus. The buildings became more extravagant by being built in stone, having 2-story skenes, and adding new entrances with steps. It is not certain how the plays were staged though. Masks added headdresses, and instead of wearing slippers, they wore platform boots. And this is a picture of a mask that has a headdress. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed and learned a few things.